So what we're going to cover today, just a quick overview of things. I'm going to show you where all the docs are for everything, where our course materials are. We'll look at goals and expectations for this course. This is a 5-week course, and we'll talk about how far you're going to get in that time. Okay. And we're going to talk about study hall, mentoring. Those are things that we do. Our team does study halls 3 times a week and mentoring ongoing. And then some basic things about mindset, how to go about learning these kinds of materials. And then we'll look at your sort of beginning tools, right? So Learn, which is our learning platform. Repple, which is kind of an introductory coding text editor, right? And Google Colabs we'll look at briefly as, another text editor, another coding environment that you can use. And we're going to touch on this a couple times. I'm going to talk about Slack etiquette a couple times because Slack is our main artery for information, right? Like, we're going to ask questions. You're going to post responses in Slack. You're going to, outside of class, while you're working on your homeworks, you're going to run into things that you don't understand. And if you need clarification, you're going to post your questions in Slack as well. And there's just, some etiquette that goes along with that. So what we're looking at here, just want to point this out, this is a GitHub repository. If you're not familiar with GitHub, that's okay. We'll talk about it at some length at another time. But, just offhand, this is something like our source of truth for the course, okay? Many of you have probably gone to the landing page here, and there's this big README here, readme.md, where, we just have dates. We have our schedule here. We've got some links that you're going to use all the time, and we have our day by day. Just offhand, we are restructuring the first couple weeks of this. We are going to pace the Python out a little bit further. So these days may get split across, okay? Just fair warning, we're probably going to split some of these out into multiple days. Like, we'll probably cover Python variables and control flow, for example, over 2 days, not just 1 day, as it's reflected here. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's talk about what this course is. Okay, so the 2 instructors that you're going to be interacting with the most are myself, Tovio Roberts, and the other instructor is Clark Walker. Clark is in the call right now. So Clark is going to primarily be instructing in Python, and I'm going to be primarily instructing in Python related to stats. Okay, so what does that mean? It's going to be a lot of Python, right? That's what this course is. We're going to explore statistical concepts, probabilistic concepts, and we're going to work toward getting all of you technical interview ready. That's the primary goal of this course. And secondary goal, of course, other primary goal, I would say, is to get you comfortable being creative with coding. That's very important to us. That's very important for you as you go forward in your technological development, going into your data science program. These are, you need to be good at programming. You need to be able to take an idea, express it in code. You need to be able to be given a concept and explore it with code, right? So that's what we're working on, to give you all the foundations, the rudiments for that, and to kind of build strategies, right? What we'll call later a general analytic approach using Python to explore statistical concepts. So our team, we've got 6 members of our team. Down here it says David Coleman is our team admin. This is no longer true. I'll update this. Jess Ball is our admin. So if you have administrative questions, you're going to go to her. I'll update this information ASAP. Sorry for not catching that earlier. But the instructional staff are the 5 names listed here. Me, Clark, Lance Bardo, Remy Arata, Devin DeJean. You can find all of us on Slack. We're all in the Slack channel. So when you post a question, you're probably going to interact with one of us, okay? And your peers, of course, because you will be answering peer questions and seeing peer questions and posting your own questions. So it's a 5-week course, Monday through Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time, Saturday, 11 to 1 Pacific time. This says 1 or 1:30, and that's an important consideration that we're going to make. There are, given the holidays, or the holiday that's upcoming, Memorial Day, we're not going to have class on Memorial Day, okay? So we're going to do one of two things. We're either going to extend an extra day to the Monday following, or we're going to extend our Saturday classes by either 15 minutes or half an hour, depending. So we'll post, just a question in the channel, in the next couple days, just saying which would you prefer, right? Do you want an extra day on the end? Do you want, 15 minutes extra on a Saturday? So I think most people end up opting for an extra day, doing a makeup day. I think that tends to work out a little bit better for most people. Anyway, so we keep everything in this repository, this DSI Premium Prep repository. What's a repository? Well, it's a place that has folders and code, and it lives on this site called GitHub, okay? So we can update this easily and pretty much in real time. As you'll see, we'll be updating materials here in real time. This front page, this README, that you can see if you just go to the landing page, which I will post in the Slack thread. This has our daily schedule, and if you notice, we link to slide decks, okay? So the slide deck we're looking at today, the one that I have open here, is this welcome, 00welcome.md. That .md, it's a markdown file. You don't have to worry about that right now. We'll probably touch on markdown in the last week a little bit. But generally, what you're going to see in here is slide decks and potentially a homework assignment. Not every day is going to have a homework assignment. Today's homework assignment has a number of tasks. Okay, these, we don't expect you to complete all of these today. Okay, what we do expect is that you sign up for Repple, and we'll look at that in just a minute. And we expect you to at least start working through some of the units in Introduction to Python. And, following that, again, slide decks, homework assignments, slide decks, homework assignments. And notice down here we've got this thing, the bottom of every one of these days, we've got to be posted, some lecture recording. After class today, I'm going to post the recording of today's class. That's going to be posted to YouTube, and those links will be updated as we go forward. Sometimes we might forget or miss a recording on a day. If you're going back and you're looking for it and you don't see it, just ping me really quick or ping Clark really quick, and we'll post it ASAP. Okay. So, continuing through this, let's see. Here we go. So, etiquette for our lectures. We prefer that you have your camera on, and the reason for this is, you're all beautiful people, and we want to see your face, and also people are more engaged, right? This is something that we've seen. When people's cameras are on, they are focusing more, for whatever reason, whatever cognitive reason that is. It seems to be the case. If you have your camera on, please be appropriately dressed. And it may be like, wow, do you have to say that? And yes, from experience, yes, I do have to say that. I won't tell any stories. So by default, please set yourself to mute. Since we record the lectures, we have to edit out your voices if you talk. So if you come off mute and you talk, I'm going to have to open that up in a video editing program and clip that out. It's not so much overhead. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a lot easier for us if we don't have to do that. So all communication will happen through that Slack thread unless we specifically allocate time for you to come off mute. And if we do that, it'll probably be at the end of class. Okay, so Clark will do this. I'll do this. We'll generally stay on for anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour after class and help people with concepts that they're stuck on. We don't record any of that. If there's some issue you're having with your code, we'll try to fix it, walk you through it. So those are times where people can come off mute. That's completely fine. But during the class, we ask that you don't, please.
Hey, Tovio, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please.
Hey, everybody, I'm Clark. Just wanted, so while we're on the topic of, since Tovio mentioned that Slack thread and all communication happening in there, I noticed it says 51 participants in the call, and I believe I counted 25-ish, might be a little bit off there, but people who posted in the thread. We do want you to post in the thread at the beginning of every class. Like, we're just getting started, so it's not a big deal. But if you haven't posted in there, go ahead and post something in the Slack thread. That helps us get a sense. Thank you. I'm already seeing a few coming in there. That helps us get a sense that we know that where that Slack thread is, and that we can communicate in there. So yeah, that really helps us out. Thank you. Cool. I'm also just going to do a quick another round of that when I take over for the second half of this. But cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Clark.
Back to you.
Yep. Yeah. So where do we keep the recordings of the lectures? Well, one thing, if you didn't notice, there will be a link from our repository. This link goes to a YouTube playlist, and that playlist is here. So if I click on this, notice there's nothing in it yet, right? Today's the first day of class. We will post everything in here as we go forward. So, you could bookmark this playlist if you want. Although I think it's easier probably just to go off that source of truth document that I was just showing. Okay. Anything else about that? Yeah, and we'll do our best not to say anyone's name while we're teaching. If you notice that we do, please send us a message. It hasn't happened yet, so I don't think it will happen while we're recording. But just if you notice that we do, please let us know, and we'll go ahead and edit that out of the recording. Okay, so those are some kind of beginning formalities here, and let's now think about the goals of this course. So what are our goals? We recognize that there is a great diversity of students with a great diversity of backgrounds, right? And our goal ultimately is to have everyone in this space pass the technical interview for the Galvanize DSI. We don't expect everyone to go into the DSI, nor do we expect everyone to be prepared to pass the DSI at the end of this course. And I want to be very clear about that. Different people are going to take different amounts of time to get there, and that's totally okay. I've definitely interviewed students who, started studying Python 3 weeks ago and crush our technical interview. And I've also interviewed students who, have been doing Python, who have coded in a bunch of other languages and maybe started doing Python like 6 months ago, who don't pass our technical interview. And everyone's ramp is different. We recognize that. We want to be, very accommodating to you where you're at. And there's, and there's no negative sentiment around, oh, it's taking you too long or anything like that. But I want you to also be realistic with yourself in terms of the bar that we're going to set and what the technical interview entails. We've got quite a bit of information on the technical interview, and some self-assessment materials in that regard. So, we'll talk about that more as it comes up, as we get to it. So another thing, a thing you might notice is that in this premium prep cohort on Learn, which Learn is our learning management system. So here's our cohort right here, this May 24th to June 26th. And I'll go ahead and put that in here. And there's a bunch of sections in here. Essentially, this is the same set of materials that you'll see in the basic prep, okay? So if you signed up for basic prep and you signed up for a premium prep, there isn't a difference in the actual materials that we're hosting here. We're not, how do I say this? We're opening all of these materials up for everyone. The premium prep course is so that we have live instruction, live feedback, and a place that you can go to keep you accountable. And so all these materials are the same. What we do ask, however, is that you work on the materials in this premium prep cohort. The reason for that is that we track your progress, and we don't necessarily take attendance in class, but we do pay attention to have you been working on these materials, and are you steadily going forward? That's how we see what you're up to and whether or not you might need help, right? That's why we're here. So we're not going to grill you on things. We're not going to really drive you or anything like that. But what we will do is check in on you, and we're going to see how far you are at various points. So one thing that I'm going to say this multiple times as we go forward, and Clark's going to say this too. You should interview for the DSI as soon as you're ready. Okay. So what do I mean by that? We're not going to grade you in the interview on how amazingly above the bar you are. We're actually just going to grade you at the bar. So if you get over our bar, we're like, oh, okay, you have the capacity, you have the capability to be successful in the DSI. Here's another set of materials that you're going to work on toward day one, okay? The reason I say this is that we have a number of students who are completionist, which is very understandable and is great. But you don't need to be amazing at Python to pass the technical interview. You need to be sufficient at Python, okay? You need to be able to express statistical concepts effectively using Python, but there's a lot of things you don't need to be able to do at that stage. So if you want to get a sense of how prepared you are for the technical interview, you can reach out to us, and we'll either give you a mock interview or we'll give you some self-assessment materials, and and we can go from there, right? We might say, oh, you're about a week out to the technical interview. Oh, you have a few weeks of study, something like that. But we can gauge where you're at. Don't hesitate to communicate with us in that regard. Also, don't put off the technical interview for until you're this amazing developer, right? Because that's actually going to hinder our ability to give you more materials to work on that are better suited to where you need to be at day one of the DSI. Okay. And this kind of speaks to, well, what if you're an advanced student? What if you've been doing, what if you have a master's in statistics and you've been doing Python for, 10 years or something like that? And that happens, right? We have people who come into the premium prep who have very advanced backgrounds and are able to probably immediately pass the technical interview. For people in that category, which generally isn't very many people, maybe a couple people every round, let us know. Reach out, and we'll give you other things to work on. We'll say, okay, maybe premium prep doesn't make sense for you. Here's a book that you should start working through this book, right? Here's a set of materials that will get you to, really give you a leg up in the DSI once you're in. So yeah, if you feel very confident in Python and are solid in statistics, if beginning of, if everything that we're doing seems rudimentary, let me know. Let Clark know. We'll get you other materials to work on. All right. So one of the things that we do as we go through materials is we have breakouts, all right? And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Let me grab this, put this here. All right. Now, what a breakout is, it's just a time for where we challenge you, right? So we set aside, say, 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 minutes or something like that after lecturing on something, and we give you the opportunity to solve a problem or answer a question, and you post your answers in the Slack thread, okay? So don't post them out of the Slack thread, only in the Slack thread. This breakout, just as a little practice run, we've only got a couple breakouts for this lecture. What are your goals for this course? And, maybe three goals, a couple goals. Go ahead and think about that and post your response in the Slack thread. And I'll go ahead and set a timer in just a moment. The goals that I'm seeing in here seem very much aligned with, what our expectations are, really. There aren't really any wrong answers. Some people do take this course from time to time who aren't trying to get into the DSI and who want to, just build out their Python. That's really an edge case for us. Almost everybody who's in here is aiming at the DSI, right? That's ultimately the goal. So that said, let's think about some expectations. Actually, really quick, I think somebody's mic is on. I'm gonna go. Okay, no worries. Okay, cool. I'll go ahead and reshare my screen. So the expectations we have, we expect you to work toward completion of the challenges in the Learn materials. And let me just show you one of those challenges really fast, just so you get an idea of this. If I go into, so here's our cohort. If I go into Python, let's go into variables. I'll look at this lesson on the left, declaring a variable. Maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. There are a bunch of challenges, right? Every one of our lessons has, somewhere around 3 challenges, pretty much all of them. So what is the value of x after the following variable assignment? Well, I don't know. What is it? So ylzx, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that this is 93.8, and I can check the answer, and it says correct. So if I put in an incorrect answer, like 93.8 without quotes, and don't worry, we'll go over this kind of thing very soon, notice it says try again. There's also, for a lot of these lessons, not for all of them, there's a solution video. So, we have solutions videos for a lot of these, especially the easier ones. For the more difficult ones, often we don't have a solution video. From time to time, we'll have a hint video. But the idea here being that you work through a lesson, you read through this. If you need to, there's video for a lot of these. Not for all of them, but for a lot of our lessons. And we've got these little, code boxes, and then we've got the challenges. And you answer a challenge. We expect you to work toward a lot of, much of the completion of these materials. That's something we notice. Maybe it seems obvious, but the higher the level of completion that a student has, the more likely they're going to pass the technical interview. maybe that goes, maybe that seems obvious, but it's something that we see, and so I just want to reiterate that. We expect you to either attend lecture or watch lecture recordings. Now, this may not apply to all of you. There may be some of you who have, like you may be more advanced, and you might be deferring from a prior round of premium prep. And in those cases, maybe there's some lectures that you feel are, that you know already, and you might skip those. For the vast majority of you, attend lecture or watch the lecture recordings if you're not able to attend lecture. And, we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to cover a lot of what is in the technical interview throughout this course. So, if you memorized all the code that we show, you would pass the technical interview. I'm not recommending you do that because I think coding is a creative process. I'm going to encourage you to be creative and, not necessarily rely on memorization of code itself. So we have a couple, kind of takeaway homework challenges, but most of the homework assignments that we give you are going to be those materials on Learn. So every once in a while we'll say, hey, try to solve this other thing, or, go read about this. But for the most part, you'll be working solely out of the Learn materials. A really important expectation is that you ask questions. Ask questions in Slack while you're working on your homeworks. So if you're stuck for 10 minutes on a problem and you can't seem to get to it, I think you've been in a state of frustration for long enough. Reach out, try to get some help, So post your question in Slack, and then your peers are likely going to be the people who respond to you first. Respond in a thread, okay, when you do respond to somebody's question. And if you are responding to a question that somebody has asked, don't just give them the answer, okay? Don't give them the answer. Lead them toward the answer. So kind of through questioning, through hints, things like that. There are times where we might reach out to somebody in a direct message and say, hey, listen, the answer is actually this, and here's why. And do you want to meet up for a mentoring session? We can talk about why this is the case. But, try not to give people the answers. Lead them toward the answers. And here's probably the most important thing. You need to practice coding, okay? To become somebody who can code, you need to code. It's like, probably a lot of you have seen Bob Ross or know who Bob Ross is. I grew up, watching Bob Ross, and that doesn't mean that I'm a landscape painter. You know what I mean? Like, I have to paint in order to become a painter. I can't just watch somebody paint. Now, I can watch, and I can take those ideas and apply them. I can try to apply it in real time. That's, I can do those things, and that will get me in the direction. But I need to also be creative in this. I need to work on it myself. Coding is a creative process. It really is. It's not solely a technical process. In a lot of ways, it's as much art as it is science. So generally what this course is going to cover, just to recap, we're going to cover basic Python proficiency, the ability to express statistical concepts through code. All of this is going to be through Python. We might have one pen and paper day, but the rest of this is going to be, even statistical concepts, we are going to express those things with code. At times, that might look a little theoretical. It might be a little bit abstract. But the reasoning here is, we can teach statistics out of a textbook, right? We could do that. But you're going to have to write code. So there are algorithmic ways of approaching statistical concepts. This course is all about, kind of exploiting those ways and just looking at these different methods for conceptualizing some kind of procedure that gets us to an answer. Okay, so we kind of, we've touched on this a couple times already. Let's look at the different sections in Learn. So we have this initialize and onboarding section. If you're here, I'm assuming you've gone through this section. Likely you've gone through it. So there's just kind of important contacts and information through there. And then we've got intro to Python, intermediate Python, and intro to probability and statistics. So if you think about what this is the full scope of what we're going to cover, okay? Everything after this is, kind of icing, right? In terms of the technical interview. We also have these extra practice problems. This is just exactly what it sounds like. It's more problems that you can go ahead and solve. There's weekly challenges that we put out. Those are all in this weekly challenge problems section. You may have seen these being posted already. And then we've got this preparing for the technical interview. And this section is probably going to grow over the next few weeks. There's a lot of materials that we're going to put in here. Currently, this just has expectations and expectations for the technical interview itself. And embedded in here, I guess it's not embedded in here anymore. Well, there's a playlist of videos that I'm going to share that covers kind of what we see, concepts, in the technical interview, okay? So I'm going to share that at some point. I'll probably actually just put it back in here and I'll share it in the channel. That's one of the things that we tell people, hey, here's a self-assessment. If you can watch these 10 videos and you get everything and you feel like you could code it yourself, you're very, very likely to pass the technical interview. So let's just look at the other couple sections in Learn. We've got setting up your development environment. You don't need to do this for the technical interview, but we highly recommend you do this. We recommend beginning of week 3, beginning of week 3, maybe end of week 3, something like that. Getting a working Python environment on your local machine. You don't need to do that this week. You don't need to bang your head against it until you have written some Python. If you already have a local environment, great. Use that. But we're going to use a tool called Repple for coding for the most part. Or you are going to use a tool called Repple. We're actually going to code in our local environments. But as I'll show you in just a minute, they're functionally equivalent for what we're teaching. Got a question here. Do folks tend to do a lot of editing in text editors like Vim or Nano versus Visual Studio? So for the DSI, Visual Studio Code is the text editor of choice. So I'm going to use that. Clark is going to use Atom. It's very, very similar. It's not really going to look any different from VS Code. VS Code is the text editor that you're going to use in the DSI. So that's probably the environment you're going to want to get together. You're going to use Conda as your Python environment. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. For this course, you can use whatever text editor you want as long as you have some kind of Python environment that you can run. Okay. If it's Sublime Text, if it's Vim, awesome. I love Vim. I would use Vim, but I don't want to confuse everybody. And yeah, just whatever tool makes sense for you, where you can run Python, 3.8 or 3x, whatever Python that is. Awesome. Okay. A couple other sections in here. We've got a further studies section, and these are the same materials that are in the pre-course. And kind of the way this looks is you pass your technical interview, and then you're waiting to be for the pre-course to start. We open pre-course about a month before the DSI start date. We open that for students who have passed the technical interview. Okay, pretty much this is our pre-course. So you can work on materials here, and that will get imported into the pre-course that you're added to. If you're just starting out with Python, focus on just the materials for this class, and only go into the further studies at the point where you've passed your technical interview. That's our strong recommendation. Of course, if you're more advanced in Python and you want to get into this before the technical interview, feel free. That's totally fine. This covers kind of the baseline of materials that you need to know for day one of the DSI. And then we've got these advanced materials, which are not in pre-course. There's some advanced Python in here. That's so far what we have. And this will probably flesh out a little bit more. Again, it's not required. It's something that, feel free to go into if you want to learn about, I think there's like Lambda functions in here and decorators and some other cool stuff in Python that, you'll learn later in the DSI, but you don't need to know for now. Okay. We already talked about the materials. Bugs. So, we're technologists. We're not necessarily amazing copywriters. We do our best to be grammatically correct. If you catch grammar errors in our materials, please let us know. There's a channel called Bugs, and all of you should be in it. So if you find a bug, just post in there and say, hey, here's a link to this lesson on Learn. I noticed this. If you can post a screenshot, if that's helpful, that's great. You'll probably come across a typo here and there. That's not out of the ordinary. And we're constantly updating these materials as well. So, every update we do, we introduce more bugs, and that's just normal. Okay. The format of lecture, 2 hours, Monday through Thursday, and also on Saturdays. We do not review homework in lecture. However, if you want help with your homework, we have a study hall that happens 3 times a week, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. In general, we're going to cover some topic for anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes. There's some topics that, maybe we won't have breakouts, but in general, we'll have a 15 minute lecture and then like a 3 to 7 minute breakout where, we give you a challenge and you do your best to solve that. Maybe you don't get to an answer, but, post what you have so far, especially coding challenges. Like write a function that does this. Well, maybe you don't figure it out. Please still post your code into the Slack thread, okay? And we do that on repeat. So the idea here is that this is kind of maybe a mini boot camp. It's very applied. We do our best to keep challenging you, and you'll serve yourself best by continually attempting those challenges. If you feel like you're falling behind, you can definitely reach out for mentoring. Study halls are a great resource as well. If you need to review lectures, go watch those lectures on YouTube. But communicate, and we're going to do our best to get you there. And like I said, there are going to be a couple lectures here and there that are a little bit more concept heavy, where I'm not sure if we'll do that this round, but like there's a machine learning lecture where you're kind of watching me code and I'm asking you conceptual questions as we go. We're probably not going to do that this round of Premium Prep since we are adding more Python kind of to the beginning based on prior feedback. So, but we might have a couple lectures that are a little bit more concept heavy and where there will be a few less breakouts, at least in part of the lecture. And in general, we'll stay on after class ends to answer questions. That is our general mode of operation. So I mentioned study halls. Those happen 3 times a week, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. Follow our YouTube channel, and you'll be notified when those start. We'll also post into, I believe we have a study hall channel, don't we? Yeah, we have a study hall channel.
Yeah,
All of you should be in
that's a
there.
new thing.
Yeah, all of you should be in there. And it's a very similar format to how we're doing this, right? So there's a thread, and you're going to post questions in that thread. And Clark is the person leading study hall. Ask him questions. He'll work on them in real time. It's a great benefit. It's open to everybody. You don't have to be in Premium Prep to utilize study hall. We have it there as a general resource. Yeah, and we announce on Slack when we go live. So I've mentioned this thing called mentoring. Very straightforward idea here. If you're stuck on something, or if you're trying to get more information about a specific concept, or you're trying to gauge your readiness for the technical interview, reach out to us. We'll put you in a queue of people, or we'll set up a time with you directly, like at that time. And we'll meet up with you for 15 minutes or half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour, and we'll work through the thing that has you stuck, or we'll deliver a mock interview where we can assess your readiness for the technical interview. There's not really a limitation on mentoring except for our bandwidth. So our team, the things that our team needs to do stretch pretty far beyond this course. We do a ton of stuff that you'll probably see more of as you enter into the DSI. So our limitation is bandwidth. We can meet with you. We might have to schedule it a couple days out, or if it's at the crunch time of our interview season. If it's at the crunch time of our interview season, then we might not be able to meet with you. Just fair warning. So in that last few weeks prior to the cutoff date, the last couple weeks really, our bandwidth is very limited because we're doing a lot of interviews. Okay, cool. Deferring. If you're in Premium Prep, you can defer to the next Premium Prep. That's always an option for you. We don't limit that. There's no charge for that. If you feel like you've fallen very behind and you want to take a slower pace, for a couple weeks before the next Premium Prep starts, that's fine. You're going to reach out to me, and I'll add you to the next round of Premium Prep, and you'll start it again. One of the things we notice is that there's a pretty high rate of people who enter the DSI who have taken Premium Prep more than once. Okay, so if somebody takes it twice, they're pretty likely to get into the DSI. If they take it 3 times, they're almost certainly going to go into the DSI. Does that mean you should take it more than once? Not if you need to. Not if you don't need to, sorry. If you don't need to take it more than once, don't take it more than once. What we try to do with this course is set you up with all, just everything you need. Course materials, code base, everything you need. And you can take those materials and continue to study them on your own, in your own self-direction. However, if you need more time in the course, starting from day one, you're absolutely welcome to do it again. That extends indefinitely. It's like you register for it once, you can keep deferring as long as you need to. Okay. So supplemental materials. I mentioned this before, but if you are ahead and you want something to work on, reach out. We'll give you stuff to work on. We've got a ton of things that we know that you're going to need to learn, right? So if you are ahead, that's awesome. If you want to do more, we can give you materials. We have just a lot of stuff that we can give you. Also, after you pass your technical interview, if you are looking at a specific domain in data science, right? Like if you're looking at digital image processing, computer vision, that kind of subfield of data science, reach out. We can give you materials and point you in good directions. So my specialties are in natural language processing and digital image processing, and I know what you need to know if you want to go in either of those directions. So once you pass your TI, your technical interview, you can reach out to me. I can give you some guidance on next materials to study, whether or not that's general materials or domain-specific materials. So there is an admissions portal for the DSI. Once you apply for the DSI, you'll have access to an enrollment advisor. So we're not enrollment advisors, we're data science instructors, and we are not experts, and there are many things that we cannot answer about the enrollment process, okay? So, we'll do our best to give you information if you ask about the enrollment process, but we're limited by for regulatory reasons, and also, we're here teaching. We're not guiding the enrollment process specifically. So once you apply, you'll have access to an enrollment advisor. Okay, so I've been mentioning this thing called a technical interview. I've talked about it quite a bit. It's about 45 minutes long. It says here we use Jupyter Notebooks, but I'm currently building a platform for us to conduct interviews. And we might deliver this to you in a Repple, or we might use the platform that I've built, hopefully by that time, or you might use a Jupyter Notebook. All of those things are Python environments. They're all going to run Python in the same way. The interface might be a little bit different, okay? So to be able to book your technical interview, you have to pass a coding challenge, which you can access from the admissions portal. To gain access to the admissions portal, you have to complete an application. Okay, so goes application, admissions portal, pass a coding challenge, book your interview, and then hopefully pass your interview. But if you don't pass, that's okay, right? A lot of people don't pass on their first try. I think we have something like a 60 to 70% pass rate on the first attempt, but upwards of 95% on the second attempt. Okay, so not saying that you're going to absolutely pass by the second attempt. It might take 3 attempts. Okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to give you, if you don't pass your first interview, we're going to give you a lot of guidelines to help ensure that you pass the second interview, and we'll do the same thing if you don't pass the second interview. Okay. So I mentioned this technical interview playlist, and maybe I'll just copy this link. This is a series of videos going over kind of fundamental concepts for the technical interview. There's an expectation here that you have reasonable Python through dictionaries. There's an expectation that you understand the binomial and Poisson distributions, and that you can code mathematical functions fairly easily. So this is a fairly good gauge of your readiness for the technical interview. Like I said, if you can go through this, understand it, and feel like you could code everything from scratch, you're very likely to pass the technical interview. And our team, we're not gatekeepers, okay? Just to be very clear, we're not going to try to keep anyone out of the DSI. We're facilitators of getting you over the minimum bar, okay? So the technical interview is here to make sure that you pass the minimum bar, so that we know that you have the capacity to be successful in the DSI. Now, if you don't pass, that's fine. Maybe you don't have that capacity or that base skill level yet, right? We're going to keep trying to help you get there. With that said, what kind of fluency do you need to have for the technical interview? Your base Python needs to be solid. You need to be able to express statistical concepts with Python. So there are people who are coming into this who might have been told, oh, you're not good at math, or you're not technical, or you may have been enculturated with some preconceived notions. We don't really believe in all that, okay? We see students in here as being capable, especially if they come in with a mindset that they are capable of doing this. One of the most difficult, say, types of students that we encounter from time to time are people who just don't think they can do this. And our assumption is that everyone can do this, all right? And, we'll encourage you to see things through the lens of struggling is a good thing, right? Struggling means that you are building a set of skills, and that process of learning, that mental lift, that cognitive lift, is going to, impress on you this set of skills. And if you can't do something now, it doesn't mean you won't be able to do it later. You're getting there. You're getting there. So, there's this idea of a growth versus fixed mindset, and we're really promoting a growth mindset. Anything that you come across, just recognize you're a beginner. If you're a beginner at it, recognize that you're a beginner, and work from that place. Be curious about it. One of the things you're going to see while you're coding, you're going to get errors all the time, and you might have to retrain yourself to see errors as being good. It's like, oh, I got an error. Good. What is it? Right? And Clark and I are both going to say that. It's like, oh, what's this error? Okay, what's that? And we'll go solve it. We're going to read a message and interpret that message. And you're going to see that your mistakes are actually the most informative things that you can make in coding. They're part of this learning process. And this is all, for a lot of you, this is going to be building new things in your brain, right? You're carving new channels that maybe weren't there before. And that's going to have some struggle in it. And that struggle is really worth it. So, encourage yourself to have a growth mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, we'll be encouraging. And we'll encourage you toward a growth mindset. So in the space of data science, there's this word science in there. And one way to think about data science is it is an abstraction of the sciences. And it's heavily rooted in statistical concepts and computer science concepts, right? Core to all of this is thinking critically. There are a lot of things that we do that we think all the time that we don't really qualify. And this becomes very apparent if you, maybe do something like look at the Wikipedia list of cognitive biases, for instance, and go through this and look at different biases and read their descriptions. You're going to notice that you do a ton of this stuff. That's just real, and that's okay. Humans are human, right? And I'll post this link. This is like my favorite Wikipedia page. It's the place I go if I'm feeling at all sure of myself, and I just want to crush my sense of reality. I go there and I discover that, oh no, I am really not thinking about this very clearly. So the point being here is that in data science, you do need to think critically. And we have a number of procedural ways that we can approach probabilistic and statistical concepts. But more generally, when you are out in the field, when you're working, you're going to encounter a lot of people's intuitions. And they're going to want you to agree with their intuitions. And you're going to have your own intuitions, and you're going to want to agree with your intuitions. And a lot of the time, those intuitions are going to be incorrect. And it's important to deconstruct those and think about, well, how do I quantify and qualify this thing that I'm thinking? How do I not build an experiment that just tells me what I want to believe already? And that's going to become more and more important as time goes on. Won't be so important in this class. I think we might be surprised by some probabilities here and there, but in this class we're not really going to get into that abstract. But as you proceed forward, this is part of what data science is. It is a deconstruction of your prior beliefs and a deconstruction of your cognitive biases and other people's as well. Okay, so we already looked at learn. That's where all our lessons and coding challenges and all that stuff is. It turns out that Learn is not a great place to write code. And let me just show you what I mean. Let's look at list basics and maybe list membership. I'm just picking a random lesson here. We've got this code cell right here. And a limitation of Learn is that we don't get to see the output of our code right away. What we get to see is errors, okay? So if I run this, I'm gonna get an error. And it's gonna tell me pretty much exactly what's wrong, you know? None does not equal true. Well, okay. But I don't get any real output. I don't get any real output from this code. So what you need is a code editor, a coding environment. And what we're going to suggest, the place we're going to suggest you start is with Repple, all right? So this is Repple IT or replit.com. And I'm going to post this link right here. This is, well, it's probably really small, not that easy to read offhand. This is my dashboard after I made an account. If I want to make a new coding environment, I can click on this plus symbol in the top right. And I can choose from a bunch of languages. I'm going to choose Python and create REPL. Notice it gives me a name by default. I can name it something else, but it's going to just create, you know, something with a random name. And what I have here is a place I can write and run code. So let me just demonstrate that. This is a function that you're all going to be able to write pretty soon called factorial, okay? Factorial, you know, factorial of 5 is just 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So factorial of some number is, you know, I'm going to just create a product. You don't need to know how to do this right now. I'm just going to demonstrate that this works. So for n in range, I'm going to go from 2 to num plus 1. And product is going to get multiplied by every value of n, and then I return the product. Again, you don't need to know how to do this right now. But this is going to give me the factorial of 5. 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 is 120. And if I hit this play button up here, I get 120, right? That's because I printed out the result of running factorial on the number 5. I could do something a little simpler, right? And this is very classic. This is our hello world, okay? This is the first thing that you're supposed to write in any programming language, if you feel like it. And notice I hit play, and I get hello world out here on the right. So this is going to be our initial go-to code space, code environment, text editor. On the left, this is just the Replit text editor. This is our output to a console in this case. So this is the result of running the code. We've got a play button up here. So that's pretty straightforward. Another space that exists for us to use to write code is called Google Colabs. So let me just kind of demonstrate this. I'm going to make a new notebook. And what I have here is something that doesn't look like what I was just looking at. This is a very, but it is a coding environment, okay? So what I've got here is a code cell. And if I want to write that same function, which I'm not going to, I'm actually just going to copy paste it. So I'll copy paste all of this. I'm going to put it in this code cell. And maybe I'll let both of these run. And if I hit play right here, or if I hold shift and hit enter, either way, this is going to, it's going to take a second, and then it's going to run this code. And I'm going to get some output at the bottom. So I got hello world from this line up here, this print hello world, and I got the result of factorial of 5. So these are both coding environments. I'm going to recommend, you know, feel free to use Google Colab, but I'm going to recommend that everybody use, use Replit. I think Replit is going to better serve your needs at this point, and it's going to be an easier transition from Replit to a local environment. Repple looks more like the kind of local environment that you're going to use. If you have a local environment, feel free to use it, right? Please use it. If you like using Jupyter Notebooks, feel free to use them. We'll talk more about what those are at another time. Google Colab is essentially a Jupyter Notebook. If you want to use Google Colabs, feel free. I'm going to recommend you use Replit, unless you have a local coding environment. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break out here, where you're going to go set up a Replit account. You're going to create a new REPL. That's what we call it, a REPL. Just one of those, hit the plus button, makes a Python coding space, and you're going to just put print hello world in there, and then paste the link to your REPL in the Slack thread. So, for example, for this, this is the link for mine. So I'll go ahead and paste that in, like so. And if you were to go open this up, you could actually see this. You could see this code, and you could run it. Okay, so take 5 minutes. I'm going to set a timer, and go ahead and set up a REPL. Oops. That is a lot of REPLs. I think that's almost everybody. Nice. Kind of an amazing thing about REPL is that it is kind of a full-featured coding environment, and it's browser-based. It can be a little bit buggy, just so you know. And the more you play around with it, you'll probably see this. You might run some code, and it'll hang up for some reason. You won't get any output in the console. And when that happens, just hit refresh, and that'll usually fix it. One really, really nice thing about REPL, and let's see how much time we have, which I might demonstrate really quick with Clark, is there's a live share feature where two people can code in the space simultaneously, which one of the big things in the DSI is this idea of pair coding, where one person's driving and the other person's navigating, where one person's coding, right, and the other person's looking things up and guiding that coding process. It's a very industry common way of coding, actually. It seems like, well, you're taking two programmers and making them do, the work of one programmer. It turns out that people tend to be much more productive working together, right? Maybe that's not surprising. And better code gets written. So in this process, as you're learning, one of the best things you can do is connect with somebody, code with them, work on homeworks together, things like that. That can really change your understanding of specific concepts, because you're going to be stronger in something and they're going to be stronger in something, and combined you're going to share those strengths and you're going to learn from the other person.
4 minutes have elapsed.
In general, I've got this timer and this message. In general, I'll have my mic muted when these go off, when these timers happen, just for future reference. Okay, awesome. If you had any issues setting up a REPL, getting that to work, let me know at the end of class. Just I'll stay on. Clark will stay on, and we'll try to iron that out. But it's pretty straightforward, right? You just create an account, create a REPL, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to share really quick. And share this REPL with Clark. And
are you DMing it to me, or
what was that?
Are you DMing it to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll just show, kind of how nice this is. So when Clark joins, I'll see like a little icon up here somewhere. And
it's just loading up.
Okay, and there's like a little chat box down here as well, right?
Yeah,
like
here I am.
You can use that chat box. I almost never do, but yeah. So that's his cursor down here, or now it's up there. And that's Clark typing, right? So this is kind of nice. And either of us can hit play, and sometimes, again, it drops the connection or something like that, and you just have to reload. But yeah, pretty straightforward, really nice tool. You can do the same thing with VS Code or something very similar with VS Code, but it's a little harder to set up. So, often if I'm pair coding with somebody, I'll just use a REPL. It's easy. Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate the Slack etiquette thing. If you're asked a question about a specific challenge, please paste a link to that challenge. Or if you're asking a question, right? So if you come across something and you're having a hard time answering it and you want help on it, definitely ask. But please put a link to that question on Learn. If you don't put a link, it's going to be hard for us to, track it down. If you just say, well, it's in Python lists somewhere, there's 27 lessons on lists. Each of those have at least 3 challenges, right? So it's going to be really hard for us to track that down. Try to form your questions well too. Try to ask specifically for what you're trying to figure out. And if you're replying to somebody's question, reply in a thread. Just like today's class, it keeps the Slack area clean. Also, use the Socratic method, right? Don't just answer people's questions. Ask them questions that lead them to an answer, or give them hints. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much me. I'm gonna, I'm gonna hand over to Clark, and then I'm assuming we're gonna take a 5-minute break. In general, we'll take 5-minute breaks on the hour, like halfway through the class. Before I hand over to Clark, though, ask questions. Let's just open up for questions. Please put them in the Slack. Yeah, and I'll do my best to answer them. We'll also have questions at the end of class. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone typing, so maybe there are no questions, which is awesome. Again, if something comes to mind, I'm going to be, I'll be back at the hour, and, I'll stay on after. Thanks so much, everybody. It's great to meet you all. I'm going to stay available. I teach the first stats class probably toward middle end of week 2. Everything for the first couple weeks is going to be heavily Python, and then we're going to kind of ease into stats, using Python. So it's a pleasure. Definitely reach out. I'll be back on the call at the end of the hour. And thanks so much. And handing over to Clark Walker.